Imagine you're watching China's biggest television event of the year. Hundreds of millions of people tuned in. The stage is massive, the lights are blazing, and the music is thundering through the speakers. Then, something walks out that stops you cold. Dozens of figures in traditional Chinese costumes step onto the stage in perfect unison. They drop into deep kung fu stances. They spin nunchaku at blinding speed. They execute precise strikes, sharp turns, and sweeping combinations, in perfect sync with each other and with the human performers standing right beside them. And then you realize, those aren't people. Not CGI, not camera tricks, not pre-recorded. This happened live on national television, in front of one of the largest audiences ever assembled in human history. Humanoid robots performing kung fu on China's most watched show of the year, and pulling it off without a single stumble, a single collision, or a single missed beat. But here's what nobody's talking about. This wasn't really a performance. China just ran the most sophisticated public test of humanoid robotics the world has ever seen. And the audience of hundreds of millions had absolutely no idea they were the subjects of the experiment. To understand why this moment is so significant, you need to understand what the Spring Festival Gala actually is. Because if you're not from China, you might not grasp the scale of what we're talking about. The Spring Festival Gala, officially called the CCTV Spring Festival Evening Gala, is China's equivalent of the Super Bowl halftime show, the Oscars, and New Year's Eve Times Square all rolled into one. Except bigger, much bigger. It has been broadcast every Lunar New Year since 1983, and it consistently draws viewership numbers that dwarf anything else on television globally. We're talking about hundreds of millions of people watching simultaneously. Families gather around their screens the way they have for decades. Because missing the gala simply isn't an option for most Chinese households. For most of its history, the gala was a purely human celebration. The country's best singers performed. Its most celebrated dancers took the stage. It was a showcase of human talent, cultural pride, and artistic tradition going back thousands of years. Then, in 2025, something new appeared. Robots took the stage for the first time. They were impressive. Synchronized movements, some limited acrobatic elements, basic dance sequences. The crowd was amazed. But if you watched carefully, it still felt like what it was: a technology demonstration, a novelty. Engineers showing the world a promising prototype and saying, "Look what we can almost do." Fast forward exactly 12 months, the 2026 gala arrives. And the robots that step onto that stage bear almost no resemblance to what appeared a year earlier. The movements are faster, the transitions are smoother, the interaction with human performers isn't side by side anymore. It's interwoven, seamless, organic. In 1 year, China didn't just improve its robots. It made a qualitative leap so large that engineers watching from around the world were left scrambling to explain what they just saw. So, what exactly happened on that stage? Let's paint the picture properly, because the details are what make this so mind-bending. The primary stars of the performance were humanoid robots from Unitree Robotics, specifically the G1 series. These machines are compact, agile, and built for dynamic movement. They were dressed in elaborate traditional Chinese costumes, which itself was a deliberate visual statement. Ancient cultural symbols brought to life by cutting-edge machines. Not simplified, slowed down, safe kung fu designed to minimize the risk of a robot tipping over. Full kung fu combinations. Precise hand strikes executed with sharp, controlled speed. Deep, low stances that required the robots to drop their center of gravity and hold positions that challenge even trained human athletes. Coordinated torso rotations that swept through full ranges of motion. Footwork patterns that had to be timed to the beat of the music while maintaining perfect balance on a live stage floor. Then came the nunchaku. If the kung fu sequences were impressive, the nunchaku moment was the one that made jaws drop. The robots executed high-speed spinning combinations, the kind where the weapon blurs into a figure 8 and one wrong calculation means it collides with the performer or someone nearby. They performed blocks and strikes at speed while staying in rhythm with the choreography. And not one robot lost control of the prop or broke formation. But the single most striking sequence of the entire performance was the sword dance. A humanoid robot, the Router L7, stepped onto the stage alongside a human performer. Not parallel to them, not at a safe distance, right beside them. And together, they performed a synchronized sword dance where the robot matched the human's movements beat for beat. Transition for transition, strike for strike. Here is where something genuinely unsettling happened. There were moments in that performance, real, documented moments, where the timing and fluidity of the robot's movements were so close to the human beside it that audiences watching on screen could not immediately tell which figure was the machine. The robot didn't move like a robot. It moved like a performer. And that distinction, That blurring of the line between human and machine motion is arguably the most significant thing that happened on that stage. Meanwhile, sequences inspired by the Monkey King, one of the most iconic figures in Chinese mythology, added a layer of cultural storytelling to the technical showcase. Robots didn't just move, they performed as characters. They embodied narrative, and they did it in front of hundreds of millions of people watching live. Now here's where things get really interesting, because none of what you just see happened by accident. Behind every fluid movement, every perfectly timed strike, every seamless interaction with a human partner, there was a layer of engineering that most people watching that performance never thought about for a single second. Let's start with the most fundamental challenge. A stage is not a controlled environment. Think about what these robots were dealing with. Blinding stage lights that interfere with visual sensors, music pumping at volumes that create vibrations through the floor, dozens of human performers moving around them in real time. Audience energy, air conditioning systems, the slight imperfections of a live wooden stage surface. Any one of these variables can throw off a robot's sensors. All of them at once? That's not a demo environment. That's a war zone for a machine trying to maintain precise balance and coordination. To handle this, the robots relied on a combination of systems working simultaneously. Computer vision allowed them to track their environment and the positions of other performers in real time. Inertial sensors measured the robot's own body position and momentum at every fraction of a second. LiDAR systems, the same technology used in self-driving cars, helped map the immediate space around each robot with precision, and dynamic stabilization algorithms tied it all together, constantly calculating micro-corrections to keep the robot balanced, centered, and on track. But the most impressive piece of engineering wasn't in any single sensor. It was in the neural network models running underneath everything else. These models don't just react to what's happening, they predict it. They analyze the movement patterns of human partners, anticipate micro shifts in the stage environment, and adapt the robot's motion before a problem even fully develops. It's the difference between a robot that falls and catches itself and a robot that never comes close to falling in the first place. Then there was the coordination challenge. Dozens of robots on stage simultaneously isn't just one control problem, it's dozens of control problems happening in parallel that all have to stay synchronized. Unitree solved this using what engineers call a cluster control architecture. Each robot receives a base choreography scenario, its role in the performance. But simultaneously, it's constantly receiving data about the positions of every robot around it and adjusting in real time. If one robot drifts slightly to the left during a turn, its neighbors compensate. If one slows a fraction during a transition, the system adjusts so the formation stays intact. The result looks effortless from the audience. What's actually happening is thousands of micro-calculations per second, distributed across every machine on that stage. And none of this was figured out on the night of the performance. Unitree published footage of the preparation process, and it gives you a completely different appreciation for what you saw on stage. In a large enclosed hangar marked with a special positioning grid, the robots ran the full routine over and over. Not simplified versions. The complete acrobatic sequences, jumps with torso rotation, dynamic mid-air turns, sharp landings with shock absorption systems engaging to prevent damage, consecutive trick sequences where one movement had to flow directly into the next without any pause to recalibrate. The hangar became a laboratory, and the stage performance was the final exam. Now, to truly appreciate what China pulled off on that stage, you need to hear about something that happened on a different stage, in a different country around the same time. In Moscow, Russian developers unveiled their new humanoid robot named Idol in a public debut. The setup was straightforward. Idol would walk out from backstage, move to center stage, greet the audience, and demonstrate basic autonomous movement. Nothing as ambitious as kung fu or sword dancing. Just walking, waving, and standing upright in front of a crowd. Idol's first steps appeared confident. The robot moved with a heavy gait, raised its arm to wave at the audience, and seemed to have things under control. Then, at a certain moment, the stabilization system failed. The robot pitched forward sharply. It could not compensate for the shift in its center of gravity. It fell, directly on stage in front of the live audience. Staff rushed out to prevent further damage. Someone attempted to pull a curtain across the scene, which only amplified the drama. The video spread across social media within hours. Meanwhile, Deep Robotics introduced the DR02, a humanoid standing 175 centimeters tall and weighing around 65 kilograms, capable of moving at speeds up to 4 meters per second. It maintains balance during sharp turns, handles slopes up to 20 degrees, and can carry a total payload of 20 kilograms. In demonstrations, DR02 didn't just walk across flat surfaces, it moved through rough terrain, it passed through water, it absorbed pushes without losing its footing, and in separate videos, it demonstrated Tai Chi, Slow, precise, perfectly controlled joint movements that highlighted a level of body awareness that would have seemed impossible in a machine just a few years ago. Then, there's something that might be the most significant development of all, and it has nothing to do with performance or demonstrations. Deep Robotics released footage of its quadruped robot dog production line. Not laboratory prototypes lined up for a press shoot. A fully operational conveyor belt manufacturing system producing dozens of identical robots in serial production. These aren't one-off machines built to show what's possible. They're products, rolling off assembly lines, shipping to customers. The era of robots as exotic experiments is over. The era of robots as manufactured goods that you can order and receive is already here. Now here's the part of this story that almost nobody is talking about, and once you hear it, you'll look at everything that happened at that gala in a completely different way. Think about what China actually accomplished that night. Not technically, whilst we've covered the technology. Think about it psychologically, socially. Hundreds of millions of people, families gathered around television screens, celebrating one of the most emotionally significant nights of their cultural calendar, watched humanoid robots perform alongside humans. Not in a factory, not in a lab, not in a tech expo that you choose to attend because you're interested in robotics. On the most watched, most culturally sacred broadcast of the year. In traditional costumes, performing movements tied to thousands of years of Chinese martial arts heritage. And the audience didn't recoil. They didn't feel disturbed or threatened. They applauded. They marveled. They shared the clips. That reaction was the real test. The kung fu was the packaging. The sword dance was a spectacle, but the actual experiment being run that night was this. If we show hundreds of millions of people a humanoid robot moving alongside a human, matching their rhythm, sharing their space, performing their cultural traditions, will those people accept it? Will they feel wonder instead of fear? The answer, delivered by one of the largest audiences in television history, was yes, and that matters enormously. Because the single biggest obstacle to deploying humanoid robots at scale in everyday life isn't the technology. The technology, as that gala demonstrated, has clearly reached a remarkable level. The obstacle is human acceptance. People need to feel comfortable around machines that look and move like them before those machines can work alongside them in hospitals, in schools, in restaurants, in homes. China just ran that acceptance test on the grandest possible scale. Developers at Unitree and other firms have said explicitly that performances like this are deliberately designed to prepare society for an era in which humans and machines work side by side, not as something exotic or alarming, but as something normal. By embedding robots into the most human, most cultural, most emotionally resonant event of the year, China is doing something far more strategic than showing off. It's rewriting the social contract between people and machines. And it's doing it so smoothly that most people watching don't realize the negotiation is even happening. Let's think about the trajectory for a moment, because it tells a story that should have the rest of the world paying very close attention. In 2025, robots appeared at the gala for the first time. The movements were limited. The interactions with humans were basic. It was genuinely impressive as a first step. In 2026, those same robots are performing synchronized kung fu routines, handling weapons with precision, partnering with human dancers in sequences so fluid that viewers can't distinguish the machine from the person. That is not incremental progress. That is a transformation in the space of 12 months. If that trajectory continues, and there is every reason to believe it will, given the engineering infrastructure, the manufacturing capacity, and the strategic investment China is pouring into this field, then what does the 2027 gala look like? What does 2028 look like? And here's the broader picture. While much of the Western world is still debating what humanoid robots might eventually be able to do, China is answering that question in real time on live television in front of hundreds of millions of people. The debate about potential has been bypassed entirely. The demonstration of actual capability is already underway. The gala was the announcement. The factories are the follow-through. The robots that danced on that stage are the same platforms being refined, manufactured at scale, and deployed into real-world environments right now. Hotels, logistics facilities, industrial floors, healthcare settings. The performance was the world's most elegant product launch. And by the time most people finish marveling at the kung fu, the robots will already be at work. So here's my question for you. If you had been in that audience watching live, the nunchaku, the sword dance, the moment you couldn't tell a human from a robot, which moment would have stopped you cold? Drop it in the comments below. I genuinely want to know which part hit hardest. If this video opened your eyes to something you didn't see coming, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because what China is building next makes this look like the opening act. Trust me, you don't want to miss it, and I'll see you in the next video.